Good morning, everyone. Let me know if you can't hear me. Welcome to the May 17th Academic Senate meeting. Here are our reminders on the screen. In the event of a Zoom attack, we will suspend the meeting and the participants will need to be let back in manually, and that'll take some time. So if that does happen, please be patient. Please make sure that both your video and audio are off unless, of course, you're speaking. And from time to time, Liz will post the sign-in sheet in the chat box. So please make sure that you sign in, and we're asking everybody to sign in, whether you're a senator or not. If you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll call on you in the order it was received. We will be monitoring the chat, but questions posted there are easy to miss. So it's really best to raise your hand. And please be patient with the meeting. We're working technically as fast as we can, and the meeting is being recorded. If you've joined us by phone, you can mute and unmute yourself by pressing *6, and you can raise and lower your hand by pressing *9. So there are no public comments that were communicated to us. So the first, we're going to approve the agenda. So let me type in the comments here. So all those in favor of approving the agenda, please type yes in the chat box. And all those opposed to approving the agenda, type no in the chat box.
Looks like they passed, Denise.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, so next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You can see we have 3 sets of meeting minutes. We're finally, we've been without an administrative assistant, so it took us a little bit of time to get the meeting notes together. So we have 3 sets of meeting notes, March 15th, April 5th, and May 3rd. And it's been brought to my attention that there's a few typos on the May 3rd notes, but I will clean those up before we post those. So all those in favor of approving the March 15th, April 5th, and May 3rd minutes, type yes in the chat box. And those opposed to approving the March 15th, April 5th, and May 3rd minutes, type no in the chat box. Okay, so looks like the yeses prevail. Do you agree, Steve?
Yes, sorry. I'm just grabbing
okay.
my agenda here.
Thank you.
Although I did want to comment, some of those were rather humorous typos, but I think most people could get it from context. We don't know if Heriberto is ethical or not, but it's certainly not his name. That was my favorite. I don't know if anyone saw that. Ethical Vasquez.
That'll be his new name now.
Yeah, he will not. He may not know where that comes from, but if you see him, that's what we should call him.
Just call him ethical. Okay, sounds good. Okay, very good. So starting off with the President's report, I'm going to give you an update on the Equity, Diversity, and Transformative Campus Climate Committee that we commonly refer to as the EDTC cubed. We had our first meeting the week before last, and we're having another meeting the day after tomorrow. And you know, a lot of people still question the need for this committee. And the goal of this committee really is to take a deeper dive into 10+1 issues. And we did not design the committee to be, you know, a siloed committee. We do have every intention of partnering with other groups. We don't want to duplicate any efforts. We want to complement each other. And I will point out that, equity work and anti-racism work is something that really we should all be doing this. So really, I'll quote Tate Hurwitz here when he said, more is more, as long as it's well coordinated more. So that's the goal, is to have the work of this committee coordinate and complement other committees on campus. I will also point out that Raimundo made this comment that, we really we're not going to committee ourselves into being an equitable and anti-racist institution. It's really going to require individual efforts as well as group efforts. And it'll involve an amount of self-reflection. And later on in today's meeting, we have Catalia and Sharon who will be presenting on some data related to program and dismissal. And I did include their PowerPoint presentation in the agenda. If you read through that, you can see at one point they're asking, we've got all this data, what can we do about this? And I would also say that all of us should be saying, well, what can I do about it? So for example, in my classes, what can I do as an instructor to make things more equitable for our students and to have different student outcomes? So all of us need to be engaging in this work on an individual level. And there was one recommendation that came out from this group when we had our meeting, is that a suggestion that, we really should all take Cross-Cultural Studies 115. It's being taught this summer by Dr. Tyce Hosley, and it's online, of course, and take the class. The people who have taken it describe it as being changing, life-changing even. And so that's a good, wherever you are on the journey of becoming a more equitable educator, that class will help. And don't forget that when you take a class, you can actually use the hours spent in the class for professional development. As long as you can only count the hours from July 1st on, because that's a Title V rule, but the class starts, I think, on June 28th. So you're good with that. And I can see Angela Ferris did put a comment in there. It's an amazing, life-changing class. So if you have time in your schedule this summer, hopefully you do consider taking that class. Okay, so that's a recommendation that this group came up with. Another recommendation that the group came up with was we really should be revising our syllabi. And we've had a number of workshops over the years related to that. Sharon Sampson did one a couple years ago. Michelle Crooks and Sarah Barton did a workshop in Academic Senate. And of course, more recently, we had Dr. Lasana Hotep who gave a workshop. That workshop has been recorded. He actually did 3 workshops related to becoming equitable educators. And they're posted to the PD internet, at least 2 of them are. The 3rd one, we're still waiting for some closed captions. When that occurs, and I think that'll occur any day now, I will send an email out to all of you, because you really should watch those. And once again, as long as if you watch those after July 1st, you should be able to use them for PD hours as well. And the workshop that he did on syllabus redesign, even if you've already been to other workshops, every time you attend one of these workshops, this is something that Steve Davis pointed out, you're going to get a little bit more out of it. So continue refining that syllabus, and every time you go to one of these workshops, you'll find something, another way that you can look at your syllabus, and another way that you can make some improvements. So those are some, and there's also going to be some PD workshops that some members of this committee are putting on during Flex Week, or that they've submitted to the FPDC folks. So look for those during Flex Week, which starts on August 9th this year. So that's a little bit of an update on that committee. It is still chairless. We will find out next week how much reassigned time, if any, the chair of this committee will receive. Until then, I'm serving as the convener. So next item on the president's report is at tomorrow's board meeting. You may have seen this already, but there is the chancellor has hired an external fiscal analysis to be conducted in our district. And I want to encourage everybody to attend. It's the board workshop tomorrow. It starts at 4:15. The workshops normally go for 45 minutes, but I think this one's predicted to go a little bit longer. And the chancellor hired this person to help us take a long-term look at our finances. If you've been, you may have noticed in the news recently, there are some districts that are having some fiscal issues. Putting it mildly, City College of San Francisco, for example, they initially were going to be laying off some tenured faculty members. Since then, the faculty have agreed to take a cut in pay to preserve jobs. I'm not saying that we're at that point. We're not even close. But there's other districts that are in trouble. And part of the reason they're in trouble is because they were spending money in ways that was not sustainable over the long haul. So the chancellor hired this fiscal analyst to do an analysis of our finances for the long haul. So I'm really interested in seeing what this person has to say. So if you can make it to the board meeting tomorrow, starts at 4:15. That's when we'll find out the results of the analysis. Next item is committee vacancies. We have a number of vacancies both on our participatory governance committees as well as our Senate committees. And we are, I'm going to extend the deadline for a few of them because we didn't get any takers. And I just want to remind you that these structures work because of faculty involvement. So I want to encourage you to put in for these committees. I know it's the end of the semester, but these vacancies are for the fall. And I know it seems like it's a far away, but it's really not. It's only 3 months away. So when I send that email out for these committee vacancies, please consider putting your name in for at least one of them. And you can put your name in for more than one. We're not likely to pick you for more than one, but if you find more than one that interests you, put your name in and we'll make the selection. Next item on the agenda, there's a recent student survey that was sent out. In fact, it closed last Friday. Some of you may have seen this or heard about it, but basically we surveyed students a number of questions related to returning to campus for in-person. We asked them questions, basically, what instructional modality would be their preference? What types of student services would they like to have? What are their thoughts on various health and safety protocols? And I saw some of the preliminary data last Wednesday when I met with Dr. Gable, and what it shows us is that, and there were at that time there were over 6,000. I think there were 6,600 responses as of that day. And what it shows us is that students are kind of all over the map with regard to their comfort level of returning to campus. Some students want to come back full board. They think this is much ado about nothing. It's time, but there's still quite a few students who are concerned about coming back to campus in person. And that really mirrors us because the employees largely feel the same way. Some of us are completely comfortable coming back. Some of us still have some hesitance. So what's going to happen next with this data is that Bree Hayes and Joan Ahrens will be looking at it. They'll be summarizing it. So hopefully, and I don't know, I don't have a date for when they're going to be releasing that summary. Hopefully, and I don't know if it'll come before the end of the semester, but there's some really interesting information in there. So look for an email from regarding that. And then lastly, just a few miscellaneous items, a few words about sabbatical. I know that seems like it's a ways away, but early in the fall semester, we'll start up that cycle again for the 2022-2023 cycle. And don't forget that part-time faculty are now eligible to apply for sabbatical. And we did slightly revise the sabbatical application to indicate that. The only difference between the full-timers and the part-timers is that whereas a full-time faculty member can either do 100% during one semester or split it over 2 semesters, the part-time faculty will only be able to do it over 1 semester. And we're going to be communicating widely about this once the fall semester begins. But I also would like you're all senators, please take this back to your departments and remind the part-time faculty members that this is an option. They probably know less about the process than full-timers do because it's never been made available to them before. Section 15 of the CBA talks about sabbatical, so I encourage people to read that. And also don't forget that before you apply for sabbatical, it's necessary to attend one of the sabbatical information workshops. And those typically occur in September. We typically schedule 4 of those. And the dates for those will be released early in the fall semester. So look forward to that email. I'd like to give you an update on the fake student situation. This comes from Barbara Gallego, the interim dean of admissions and records and financial aid. They are working with the state chancellor's office on helping to identify some possible fake students, and they're currently investigating hundreds of students. And the system office released a series or a set of indicators, things to look for that should flag us that a student account is possibly fake. And as a result of that, they're actually casting a very wide net, and they are contacting students who actually are real students, including employees A number of you, if you're taking classes here at Grossmont, a number of you may have received an email from Admissions and Records. Don't panic. Typically what that means is that somehow your account was flagged as suspicious, likely because you filled out the application very quickly. That was because it looks like the people who did this, perpetrated this financial aid fraud attack, used bots to create fake student accounts, and those bots worked very quickly. So, and some real students could have had their accounts flagged as well. So if you have students who approach you and they're concerned about this, nothing to worry about, just have them contact Admissions and Records, and any employees who received an email from Admissions and Records, just contact Lisa Lundgren and she'll clear that. That's a very quick fix. And the financial aid folks are continuing their investigation as well. It may be months before we have a full sense of the scope of it. So as information becomes available, we'll make sure to let you know. And then my last miscellaneous item, this is the last academic senate meeting of the spring semester. The next meeting occurs on the first day of instruction, which is August 16th. And so because this is the last meeting of this semester, it's my last meeting as academic senate president. My actual last day as president is June 7th. Pearl takes over on June 8th. But you might recall from years past that at the end of the last semester, we kind of do this little special ceremony where we transition from one president to the next. And so we're going to do that little special ceremony after this meeting concludes. So we're hoping that you'll stick around for a few minutes after the meeting for that. And so that includes my, my president's report. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Dave Dillon. It's an action item. We have the revised DE addendum. So, and this was brought to Academic Senate a couple of weeks ago. And so you've had a chance to look at it. And I also included the revised addendum when I sent out the agenda last week. So Dave, do you need to share anything?
I do have a few slides if I could share, please.
Okay, I will make you co-host then. Okay, you're all set, Dave?
Thank you. Are you seeing a slide?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think I'm going to leave it on the screen because I think I lose the chat if I try it in presentation mode. Denise, a huge thank you for your leadership. I can't imagine being a Senate president during a pandemic, so I really appreciate you, and I know my colleagues do as well. Good morning and hello to everyone. I'm going to try to be brief with mostly a thank you for your feedback on the distance ed proposal addendum form. And I'm going to try to do a quick summary of my response for some of the questions and feedback that came up. Majority came from the May 3rd Senate meeting. There were a few that I'm going to cover that came via email after that. So one, just to let you know, I did a very thorough review. I watched the recording of the item from May 3rd and also reviewed the chat, and that led to a few discussions as follow-up with folks. I jovially mentioned that about a fourth of the chat included commentary on whether Brian Rickle was in a helicopter or on a horse. So I hope you find humor in that as well. And then I think a place to start here is just to quickly reiterate the purpose. The purpose of this form, mainly the current form that we had is woefully outdated. This will provide an opportunity for Grossmont to, one, be able to select partially online modality, which we don't with the current form. Also to match with new evolving Title V language, and huge thanks to Jeff Waller for pointing me to the current Title V language and being on top of that. And then it also allows for district alignment, which we didn't have previously. So I'm excited about where the form is. And then another quick reiteration. This started with Dee and myself and Jody Reed and Cindy Morin at Cuyamaca. And what we drafted, which also was assisted and supported by what other colleges were doing. And as they were revising similar forms, this went to the online teaching and learning committee from both colleges and the curriculum committees from both colleges. And so let's see, let's then start with the infographic. So Brian Rickle had mentioned, and I think I want to attribute and appreciate the math department, because I think that was primarily coming from math, and this was a student-facing infographic that was going to be designed to better help students understand the differences of the modalities. And Brian was pointing out that there were some discrepancies with that infographic and with the modalities represented on this form. That resulted in a meeting with Dee and Brian and Krista and I, and we hashed that out. And the conclusion was that while in a perfect world, we would have consistent language, it was going to be okay if there were some discrepancies with that particular one, mostly because the infographic, again, is student facing, has a purpose for students to be able to see it, while no students are going to see this distance education form. And then I think in the future, hopefully post-pandemic, we will be able to refine the language and strive for consistency. Let's see, the next one is emergency. So I think this was Brian Carter that brought up the emergency example based on staffing. And Brian, just so you know, I don't disagree with you, but the purpose of the form is not to define the emergency. So the form has some examples of what emergencies might be, and those examples are listed as pandemic or fire. It also says state or region sanctioned emergency. So whoever the body is that makes that defines the emergency, that is not the curators of the form. I hope that makes sense. And then clarification on the status of the previous ERT form. I think there was a bit of confusion about this, and I'm going to quote Dee with a response that I think clears it up very well. The new form will be used when a course is reviewed on the 5-year curricular cycle moving forward. If the current DE addendum form has not been refreshed within the 5-year time frame, then the new form would be filled out. But anyone who has already gotten existing approval for DE or ERT, you're not going to need to complete a new form. The kind of caveat there is that we have addendums and approvals all the way back from 1998. Clearly, a lot of things have changed since then. So we just want those to be updated. Additionally, what the new form allows is for more transparent ceilings for your departments, and combines our accepted modes all onto one form. Thank you, Dee. And then just a couple more. There was a question about checking all the boxes, and the clarification there is yes. For the modality on the form, check all the boxes that apply. Peggy, thanks for your question on that. There was a post-Senate meeting DEI question. Should there be DEI information on this form? And the answer to that is that there will be a DEI question on the curriculum form as the course is then approved in curriculum. So it won't live, the DEI portion won't live on this form, but it will be involved in the process. And that will address Title V DE requirements of approved courses as well. And then let's see, there were a number of scheduling questions that I really appreciate, and I'm interested in that discussion and what the answers are, but those are really secondary to the purpose of this form. Related to that, there were questions about what percentage a hybrid or partially online constitutes and the DE load max. And I'm going to suggest directing those to a larger college body and the union to try to get answers for those. And then finally, Cheryl had a question in the chat regarding access codes. And Cheryl, just so you know, if you're out there, I really appreciate that question, and I think it needs more discussion. So this is kind of a difference between a section and individual choices and the course, and how it would, how the if a section or course is requiring students to purchase an access code, where that information would live. Should it be in the syllabus? Should it be in the course outline? The conclusion on that for now is to leave the form as it is, but it is already an agenda item for early in the fall because I think it warrants more discussion. So thank you for all of that. I hope that was clear. You know, my take on this is that the new form is going to benefit us in a whole lot of different ways, and it will still continue to have a whole lot of opportunities to be refined. But I think we will be in a much better place if this form can be in place for the fall. And with that, I'm either going to open this up if we have time for more questions or discussion, or defer to Denise for how the remainder of the action item agenda will go.
We do have time if anybody has a question. Please raise your hand.
And I will also respectfully ask Dee if you have anything to add that I may have forgotten.
Nope. You got it. Thanks.
Okay, it doesn't look like there are any questions. I don't think I missed it. Yeah, we don't have any questions. I think I'm gonna check with Greg Robinson on this. This is an action item. Do we need to call for a vote to end debate, or can we just go straight into the vote?
As long as there's no objection, you're allowed to go straight in. If anybody objects, then you'd have to take the vote.
Okay, are there any objections to going to a vote at this point? Speak now. Okay, so let me hang on. Let me type in the chat box here. All those in favor of approving the revised DE addendum, type yes in the chat box. All those opposed to approving the revised DE addendum, please type no in the chat box. So we will preliminarily say, Senator officers, do you agree that it looks like the yeses have it?
Yes, I would agree.
Yes.
Okay, we will verify that after the meeting's over, but looks like the motion passed. So thank you, Dave. Thank you to everyone who provided the feedback.
Thank you all. One thing real quick that I forgot to mention, Shirley, you had given a suggestion regarding language that was going to be including what I think is the future. So as I'm learning exactly what the near and far future of modalities in instruction are going to look like, the form is, there are plans for the form to be updated to include that language. So surely I don't have the crystal ball yet, but really appreciate your suggestion, and it's in the works. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thank you again. So the next item on our agenda, I would like to introduce Gilberto Santa Rosa Silva. He is one of the 4 health and safety specialists that were hired by the district, and Gilberto is assigned to Grossmont College. Gilberto, I'm hoping that what we'll hear you say is that we'll have football games on campus in the fall, and we'll get to watch them live. So no pressure though. So welcome, Gilberto. And I don't know if you have PowerPoint or anything you want to, do you need to share your screen for anything? You're muted right now, Gilberto.
Okay, no, I don't have any presentation to be shared.
Okay, then take it away.
Okay, so thank you for the invitation, this meeting. I would like to introduce myself like real quick. I'm one of the health and safety specialists here in Grossmont College. And I have a previous experience in OSHA requirements. And now I updated everything with Cal OSHA prevention for workers and employers. And also I did a John Hopkins contact tracing training. My priority at this moment is to work with athletics. So as you said, we are like working a prevention plan for the athletes they're already training in the football field. And we are working in this prevention plan for them to have all the tournaments, all the competitions back as soon as it possible. So basically, I'm here to put in place what is required by the administration. I'm reporting everything to Cheryl. We are located here, like I'm located in the building 80B. It's pretty close to Cheryl. Pretty soon, I'm only waiting for the signs. I'm starting the signage in the whole campus. And our COVID prevention plan is also about to be released. And it will be posted online. And everybody is going to be able to acknowledge our prevention plan. It's going to call the repopulation planning framework. It's according to Cal OSHA and the San Diego County Health Public Department. So this is my 3rd week here. I'm still like meeting a lot of people, learning a lot of things about the college. And yeah, I'm here to help. If any of you have any question about our prevention plan for athletes and also for staff and students, me and Cheryl, we are the focal point of this matter. And yeah, and my accent is from Brazil.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Gilberto? I know he's been here 3 weeks, so he's still, getting his feet wet, so to speak. But and we can certainly bring him back for in the fall. When by then he'll have more information and maybe even some news about football.
We have a few hands up, Denise.
Okay, great. Let's see. It looks like Lara is first, and then Brian.
Oh, hi, Gilberto. Thank you for your work here. I'm just wondering, are you, is there a plan to expand this work beyond athletics, or do you know when that will happen, or is that just the focus for the foreseeable future?
Okay, so for now, we are only working with athletics. We have 6 sports already doing like a weekly training here in the campus. But they are only using the football field like once a week for 1.5 hours. I'm meeting with Joseph, the athletic trainer, but today we have a Zoom meeting at 3, and also we're gonna meet in person at the field tomorrow at 11 a.m. And then he's gonna update me, about his plan and everything. Then we're gonna like put a schedule for signage and everything that is gonna be needed for the athletes. So far, the priorities they are changing every day, especially like every week, especially because of the new requirements and guidelines. But my focus here is gonna be athletics, and I hope that by June 15, we're gonna have like everything pretty much, in place for the return. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Brian?
Thanks, Gilberto. Thanks for your work. Thank you for being here. And I'm guessing you probably don't have an answer to my question. It's not too far off from Laura's, but I will be a little bit more specific about it. We have a brand new performing arts center that has yet to open. We have 4 major departments on campus that produce live performance in spaces that have been shut down like everything else for over a year. Do we have any idea timeline wise when we are going to start having that conversation? I know it sounds like the focus right now is athletics, and I heard you say that, but is there any conversation going on about what we're going to do with this new multi-million-dollar building that we've just built that has yet to open, in terms of getting people back on campus for live performance in person? Because it really does affect the entire next year of not only our departments, but also our production schedules. This thing is pretty much, if you looked at the calendar we created, it's back to back. It's week by week. There are events that are supposed to be in there. So that's a kind of an addendum to Laura's question. I wonder if there's any conversation about when that conversation will begin.
I see. So I don't have, especially me, I don't have a date yet. Maybe Cheryl, she's gonna be like the right person to answer you this question. But one thing that I know is that today we have a meeting with facilities, and then we're gonna be contemplating like all those matters and issues about the buildings, especially the ventilation, status that we have nowadays. I know that we are waiting on an assessment from a third company that made the assessment for the ventilation in all the buildings, and then from that we're gonna start, planning the people capacity. We need to check how are the buildings, especially this new one, that, as you said. And yeah, according to the guidelines, we're gonna be able to put everybody like together again in the buildings. But I don't have a date.
Okay.
Maybe today after this meeting with facilities, and as soon as we get the assessment from the third company, that make about ventilation, that is an important issue. Yeah, so we're gonna have this answer.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other? I don't see any. A couple questions. The tennis courts, Gilberto, and the track, are those open to the public right now?
No, they're not open.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other questions for Gilberto while we have him? Oh, Gary?
Yeah, I had typed in the chat. Is there any requirement of the athletes to be vaccinated right now?
Yes, there are requirements. Basically, it's on the plan, but they're already doing it. The plan wasn't released yet, but they're already following everything. I did a benchmark with Mesa College and Miramar College, and all the trainers, like from City College, they are like at the same page. So the requirements that we have so far that we are following, according to CAOSHA, is like a pre-screening for the athletes, and temperature measure every day that they come here back to the campus. They have a Sway medical app that they can do this pre-screenings, like a couple questions about the symptoms that they do, and as soon as they get here, they have the temperature measure. Besides that, when they came back, they had to take an exam, a COVID exam, the swab nose test, like 3 days prior they come back to the campus. So that's what we have so far for the athletic, and it's according to the repopulation plan for athletes, according to CAOSHA.
I'm sorry, I think I missed this. Did you say that the student athletes will be required to have vaccinations prior to participation in sports?
No. I
okay.
didn't say that. We cannot do that because it's not approved by FDA. So only after being approved by FDA that we can, put it as mandatory. But the swab nose test they had to do prior to come back to the campus, and they have the daily screening, the question about the symptoms and the temperature measure.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Gilberto? No? Okay, Gilberto, thank you very much for coming to our meeting and addressing us. Hopefully we can bring you back in the fall and to get an update on what's happening on our campus.
Yeah, for sure.
Cross our fingers that we get some live athletics soon with spectators. Thank you so much.
So, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
and-
Thanks for the invitation.
And welcome to Grossmont College.
Thank you.
Okay, and then next up, I realized I went out of order. I was so excited thinking about football that I bypassed. We have a DSEVIS who's going to provide us with a curriculum update. So D, and do you need, oh, never mind, you're already a co-host.
All right, thanks everybody. So a quick update from the curriculum committee as we wrap up the semester. Attached to this week's agenda was the board packet of curriculum that will be approved tomorrow evening. And so that's just our regular report, deletions, course modifications, updates to degrees, and distance ed approvals. So that's just the regular and ongoing work. And today just kind of wanted to wrap up a couple of different items and provide for you the final language to our mission and charge. So the purpose of the Grossmont College Curriculum Committee is to ensure a curriculum that meets Title V regulations and reflects the mission of Grossmont College. The Curriculum Committee strives to promote a diverse, equitable, and inclusive curriculum that is academically sound, comprehensive, and responsive to the evolving needs of our community. The committee will create and foster an environment of cultural humility as it relates to the development and maintenance of curriculum. So the letters in black are the edits that we made so that we didn't have duplicate purpose. And the committee felt it important to make it an actionable item, not future, but that we will do this. So that's where we landed on that. The other item that we wanted to share with you is, as you know, the General Education Subcommittee has been meeting this semester, primarily to go over two topics, ethnic studies and Title V changes, as well as general education. So the Title V changes did not happen within this semester as originally projected. But we'll be going for second read and approval to the Board of Governors July 12th and 13th. So more to come on that in the summer and in the fall. The other topic we've been discussing is general education, as is the goal of this particular subcommittee, and to make recommendations to the regular curriculum committee. Again, we're not a decision-making body, but we make recommendations to the curriculum committee. So our conversation focused on discussing what it means to have a more flexible, equitable, and student-centered GE as options for the local associate's degree. And where we landed for a more flexible GE, the recommendation would be that a student completing any general education pattern and Title V competencies would enable a student to earn a local associate's degree. So if a student completed the AAAS GE pattern, the CSU GE pattern, or the IGETC GE pattern, that would enable them to earn a local associate's degree. Again, our conversations focused around equity and being student-centered, and then also looking to the field for best practices and looking at our very own sister college who has this practice currently in place. Last but not least, launching, or almost, we have been doing a lot of change changing and trying out new things this year. Thank you to everyone who's been patient with us as we try to migrate our processes to a digital format. We have in orbit different review processes that will continue to unfold and hopefully get better in the next year with increased transparency about your curriculum and where it is in the process, as well as providing more faculty support. Our forms in the next year will be digitized and will be available on form stacks for faculty, so that will be developed over the early summer and will be ready for your use before fall 2021. And then also wrapping up in this year, 2021, is the access to and purchasing of a curriculum management system. So currently the task group is working on finalizing the RFP that will go out early this summer, and faculty will be involved in focus group work toward the beginning of the fall term. And the goal is to have purchased and encumbered the funds by December of 2021. So more to come on that as well. And then last but not least, I just wanted to talk about our village. If everyone helps to hold up the sky, then no one person gets tired. I wanted to just highlight our curriculum committee. These are the folks that have been reviewing all of the curriculum that's come into to the group. And so thanks and hats off to all of these folks. We had a lot of new faces on our committee this year, and just really grateful for everyone who continues to participate and review curriculum week in and week out. Also want to thank Marianne de Koning, who has served the curriculum committee for at least 8 years while she's been at Grossmont, and will be stepping away from the committee starting in fall. But please join me in thanking Marianne for all of her work. But this is our team, and so very grateful to all of them. Together this year, we reviewed 560 proposals. That's huge. And so of those proposals, there's about 12 different types that we reviewed. The biggest chunk came in course modifications, so faculty engaged in course revision. Thank you to everyone. And then we had 135 ERT proposals. And so also want to thank our previous technical review group, which included Marcia Rayburn and Jeff Waller, as we approved some of those ERT proposals that we worked on in the summer, in the fall. So lots of work, lots of really good work from the curriculum committee. And that's it. Any questions?
Checking the
That's
chat
it.
box. Oh, I'm sorry, does somebody have a question? I'm checking the chat box for questions, but if somebody has a question, did I hear somebody ask something?
I haven't seen a question in the chat, but there's been a lot of congratulations to Marianne. So if there was one prior to that, maybe someone could re-enter it or verbalize it.
Oh, there's one, Tate Hurwitz.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, but also I'm personally really excited that the curriculum committee has kind of re-engaged and kept moving forward with the meetings of the GE subcommittee. I think that's a really, really important piece that helps us. You know, I'm glad we're going to be getting guidance from the GE subcommittee who, as we're moving forward and thinking about our programs. It's really useful and it's long overdue, and I'm really pleased. So thank you.
Bonnie had a question in the chat about the GE packages. What's going to be different?
Do you want to say your question out loud, Bonnie?
Oh, sure. You showed us a slide where you showed that we would be accepting GE package for not just Grossmont's associate, but also Agetzi and the other one. How is that different from what we've been doing previously?
So really, it's not. So just to clarify, our local associate's degrees require the local GE pattern only, and its particular requirements. The proposal, and again, this isn't set yet. This is just a proposal or recommendation moving to the curriculum committee. It would be that a student could choose to use the CSU breath pattern or the Agetzi pattern or the AAAS to earn a local associate's degree. Currently, our students who are transfer bound kind of get left out of the local associate running sometimes. And so this would just accommodate and be flexible to the student who wanted to earn a local associate degree, but also had other academic goals. So really using the GE to fit best with what the student's long-term goals would be. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. And if anybody hasn't tried to match up the 3 different pathways in the course catalog yet and has no idea what Dee's talking about, that's a fun little exercise to try and do to plan a set of courses that students in your major could take that would satisfy all 3 packages.
And so this would just kind of streamline that, Bonnie, and really put the student's goal first, and then your planning works around that.
Thanks.
Okay, it looks like Cheryl has a question.
Hi. Yeah, Dee, of course, because we have an exercise science activity requirement, this might impact, our department heavily. And so I just want to know if there's going to be an opportunity, if this comes to a vote and somebody does not want exercise science as part of the package, that we would have a chance to come and talk to the curriculum committee before there was a vote about that. I know that in the past it's been, something that we've been able to contribute to the understanding of what we do in our area, and that has impacted people's decisions to whether or not we should move forward with continuing this, as a requirement for our students.
Hi, Cheryl. This proposal does not change any of the 3 GE patterns, and 2 of them are by, outside of our kind of purview, but this would make no change to the local associate contents of the AA and the AS. This just allows a student to pick a pattern.
Okay, great. Just checking.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I don't see any hands up.
Okay, thank you, Denise.
Okay, thank you, Dee. And once again, another very stylish PowerPoint presentation. Okay, and now we are moving on to Carolia and Sharon. They are both members of the Student Success and Equity Committee, and they are here to present a data overview from student probation and dismissal. So let me know which one of you will be doing the screen sharing, and I'll make you a co-host.
I'll be sharing my screen, Denise. Thank you.
Okay.
This is Carolia.
Okay, you have it now.
Awesome, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning, almost good afternoon. My name is Carolia Macias. I'm a counseling faculty and on their general counseling. And along with my colleague Sharon, we'll be presenting today some data that that was presented to us in our on the Student Success and Equity Shared Governance Committee. And of course, we wanted to do our diligence in sharing this data with you all so you can share what's going on with our probation and dismissal students. Right. So quick overview for you all on these terms, right? Academic probation is for any student who has attempted a minimum of 12 semester units and whose cumulative grade point average falls below 2.0 in courses receiving letter grades for work attempted at a college within the district shall be placed on academic probation at the college where the units were attempted. Then we have lack of progress probation. Any student who has enrolled in a cumulative total of at least 12 semester units at a college in the district shall be placed on probation when the student's cumulative units indicate 50% of more units of W's, which are withdrawals, I's for incompletes, and or NP, which is no pass, at the college where the units were attempted. So I'll start first with academic probation for the academic year of 2019-2020. So in the first slide, you're gonna see the race and ethnicity, and where there is overrepresentation of Latino, Black and African American, Middle Eastern, and multiracial students on academic probation compared to overall Grossman College headcount. You can see the blue is for first semester on academic probation versus the white, which is the general, the Grossman College overall headcount. And you can see the different percentages in here. Then we have gender, right? Where we can see a significant percentage of male students on academic probation compared to the overall Grossman College headcount. So we have here, again, our blue is our first semester in academic probation for male students, and then the white, which is the general, the Grossman College overall headcount. Then we go by age, right? There is an overrepresentation of younger students or younger than 20-year-old students and 25 to 29-year-old students who were on academic probation compared to the overall Grossman College headcount. So now we're gonna go over lack of progress probation. So again, we're gonna go by race and ethnicity first. So there is an overrepresentation of Latino, Black and African American, multiracial, and Middle Eastern students who have been on lack of progress probation compared to the overall Grossman population. So here's represented in orange, right? The first semester of lack of progress probation versus Grossman College overall headcount in white. Then we go on the gender. So there is high percentage of male students who have been on lack of progress probation compared to the overall Grossman population. Now we go by age. So there is a high percentage of 25 to 29-year-old students, as well as 30 to 49-year-old students who have been on lack of progress probation compared to the overall Grossman population. So now I'll pass it over to my colleague Sharon Sampson, who is going to go over lack of progress and academic dismissal students.
Thanks, Caro. So as we continue to review the disaggregated data on lack of progress and academic dismissals, I would like us to collectively reflect on the opportunities we have as faculty and staff to positively impact these existing inequities and truly transform our outcomes. In the words of Dr. Estela Benzman, one of the most significant challenges that community colleges around the country face is how to achieve equity in educational outcomes, such as degree attainment or transfer to four-year universities across various subpopulations of students. So here's some quick review of the terms regarding academic dismissal, which is any student in academic probation whose semester grade point average falls below 2.0 shall be academically dismissed. Any student on academic probation whose semester grade point average equals or exceeds 2.0, but whose cumulative grade point average for all units attempted remains below 2.0 shall be continued on probation. So think of the impact this has on our students. Lack of progress dismissal is for any student who's on lack of progress probation and whose semester work, hang on.
Sorry, Sharon.
I just did that earlier. Indicated 50% or more units of withdrawals, as Carr already reviewed, incomplete, or no pass will be continued lack of probation. Now you can go to the next slide. Thanks. So if you're looking at our disaggregated data, and this wonderful slide has been compiled by our amazing researcher, Victoria. So if you have any specific questions, she is available as well to answer and go into specific detail regarding some of the data. So if you're looking at the slides, you can see that a large number of students have been placed on academic dismissal compared to those who are on lack of progress dismissal. In addition, Black and African American and Latino students show high numbers of academic dismissal. So in the yellow or the orange color, you can see the lack of progress dismissal and compared to the orange bar, which shows the academic dismissal. You can go to the next slide, please, Karen, thanks. So we're going to go now into the race and ethnicity, the disaggregated data. There is, again, an overrepresentation of Latino and Black and African American students who have been academically dismissed compared to the overall Grossman population and lack of progress dismissal students. There is an overrepresentation of Asian, Latino, and multiracial students who have been dismissed due to lack of progress. If you're looking at the chart, you can probably brighten your screen under view options to make it a little bit larger, like I visually challenged, so you can actually see the data. So let's select, for example, the middle, just doing a high-level overview on the Latino population. You'll see Grossmont overall headcount is 37%, yet the academic dismissal is at 50%, which is an alarming statistic. So if you're just looking at the data numbers, it'll tell you a clear picture in terms of what's happening in our campus with our underrepresented students. You can go to the next slide, please, Karen. So we're going to break it down now by gender. So for the female population and compared to the overall Grossmont headcount, you'll see that there is 55% of academic dismissals and compared to lack of progress. And for male populations, it's 41% the overall headcount, and it's 43% who are on academic dismissals. So here to the right of this bar is the raw data, and we'll make this PowerPoint available to you. It's also available to you on the SSNE committee websites. If you want to go back and look at it and take a deeper dive, you're also welcome to do that. Next slide, please. Are you able to move it, Carol, to the next one?
Yeah, it's already on H.
Oh, sorry, thank you. All right, so academic dismissal by age. So anyone, of course, we have a large population of students, 26% who are younger than 20. The academic dismissal is at 26%. If you're looking at the age percentage for 20 to 24-year-olds, they comprise 39% of the population, yet the academic dismissals are at 53%. And of course, then you can go and move a little bit further, looking at age groups between 25 to 29, which comprises 14%. The academic dismissal is 14%, and the lack of progress dismissal is at 19%. So if you're looking at the age range, 20 to 24, there's a huge gap. So we can see a large proportion of students between that age range on academic dismissal is pretty significantly high. And the lack of progress dismissal compared to the overall Grossmont population, which is 39%. Next slide, please, Carol. Thank you. All right, so the overall findings. So Black, African American, Latino, and multiracial students are overrepresented among the areas of academic probation, lack of progress probation, and academic dismissal, and lack of progress dismissal. Our Asian students are overrepresented in the areas of lack of progress dismissal. Our Latino students are among the largest group who was academically dismissed. 25 to 29-year-old students are overrepresented among the areas of academic probation and lack of progress probation. And then we go to our 20 to 24-year-old students who are overrepresented among the areas of academic dismissal and lack of progress dismissal. Our male students are overrepresented among the areas of all areas: academic probation, lack of progress probation, academic dismissal, and lack of progress dismissal. So these are alarming data that we really need to take a look at to make some significant changes as we are reimagining how we're going to go back to our campus, whatever model is decided upon. So I'll pass it back over to you, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. So some questions to consider. Is this data surprising to you all? Right? What structures and or policies do we have in place that continue to replicate these patterns across the college? And what actions can we take to close these equity gaps? Right. So something to think about, and really, we ask that you take this back to your departments and have these discussions as one of your agenda items for in a regular basis to really talk about how can you, as faculty member in your classroom, close these equity gaps and help, right, reduce the percentage. For instance, in general counseling, what we decided to do is to offer 1-hour appointments to Black and African American students on probation. And so these students received an email last week that with a unique link to make an appointment, right? The hope is that they'll take advantage, right, to make an appointment to see a counselor, as we know that we're limited with the appointments that we can offer to students. But again, we're making efforts and recreating how we can help and support students, especially our African American and Black students, and also multiracial Latino students. This is a pilot that we just decided to try, right? And for the next 3 weeks, these students will have access to make an appointment with a counselor. And the beauty of it is that these students have this unique link. It's not open to the general population. It's only open for these students. Is it gonna work? We don't know, right? But we decided to do something because this data is alarming to us, right? So how can we help our students? And again, this is something, what can we do, right? And this is, I don't know if this is, the right place to talk about it, right? And start the conversations, right? But I feel that in your faculty meetings, this is where you can start these conversations because it's applicable to each area. I do want to give kudos and thank Dr. Victoria Rodriguez and Nancy Lopez Romero, as they put this data together for us. And I know Victoria is here today. Dr. Victoria is here today. If you have a specific questions, then Sharon and I can answer. She'll be happy to answer those questions.
Yeah, and we do have 2 hands raised. We have Jennifer Carmine and then Greg Robinson. So Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi. I wanted to ask if I would like to find out for my department these similar statistics. So who would we contact to get that information?
Hi, this is Victoria Rodriguez. You could email either myself or Joan Ahrens and submit a CPI research request form. That should be available on our website, but if it is not, if you can reach out to either one of us, and I'll put my email in the chat, we can prepare that data for you.
Great, thank you so much.
Hey, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I just want to compliment the folks on this presentation. I agree. These are very concerning data. And I particularly was impressed to hear that the counselors are targeting people for outreach. Here a number of years ago, I helped organize focus groups here on campus of some of the precisely students. And the #1 complaint they had was access to counseling. So it's really important to hear that you're making that kind of outreach. So thank you so much for that. And then I have a couple of more specific questions, and probably relating to Dr. Rodriguez. And that is, we know particularly with the African-American community, once you control for race and gender, then it seems to be the big concern is African-American males. And is there any particular data along those lines that you could point to? And particularly, are you targeting that in terms of the outreach? And a related question, obviously our largest number of these vulnerable students are in the Latino community. Are you also controlling for ESL, that is second language? And how about our Middle Eastern population here in the area who are also non-native speakers of English? Is there any kind of data around that? So those three areas, the crosstabs for African American by gender, Latino by language status, and Middle Eastern also by language status. Any kind of quick feedback you have to know right off the bat? Thanks.
Hi, thank you, Greg. Those are all really great questions. This was sort of a first pass, first look at the data. This kind of data had not been looked at for the last couple of years, from my understanding. So we haven't gotten to an intersectional lens yet. We are working towards that to sort of see what's going on at the intersection of race and gender, given the results that we do see, that there's a high proportion of males and a high proportion of Latinx and Black and African American students on probation and dismissal. I would assume that if we look at that intersection, we'd find a lot of Black and Latinx males on academic probation and dismissal. But we are going to be looking into those numbers. As for looking at the intersection of race, ethnicity, and language, there are, for Latinx students in particular, the majority of our Latinx students are not in ESL classes. So my guess right now would be that that doesn't really have a lot to do with them being on probation or dismissal. For our Middle Eastern students, that is a much smaller population on our campus, and they have a larger representation in ESL classes. So my short answer is I'm not sure, but that could potentially be something to look into. We don't ask students on their application to say like what their primary language is. We just ask them whether it's English or not. So it's hard to kind of tease that apart in the data. But that is definitely something to look into, I think, specifically for the Middle Eastern population.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add just a little bit. I participated, like quite a few, many of us here, in the Strong Workforce Faculty Institute, and a lot of that was data driven. And in my own particular area that I looked at was the amount of Latinx, specifically males in between that 20 to 24-year age gap, that were not being retained or successfully passing the class, especially my specific courses. And I noticed that like within week 6 and 8 is when many of them struggle. So I looked at my own practices to see what was I doing during that time frame as to why students that age group, that particular gender, Latinx male, were exiting. And I was sending emails or an announcement to give them status in terms of where they should be grade-wise in terms of points, with limited information regarding support. If you are struggling and you're not at the level where you think you should be, there is support, there's still an opportunity. So I switched the language that I use, and to have them have the confidence in saying, hey, just because you have the option to opt out now, to withdraw, doesn't mean you have to. There are some resources and we can work together to have you successfully get to the end of the finish line. So this past semester, I looked at the data and there was a slight increase, but I'm always trying to figure out ways that I'm trying to improve, because I'm in charge. That's my domain and my locus of control. What can I do to make sure that impact is positive for the students that I have during the limited time that they're with me in my classes? Just wanted to add that little tidbit. It's an ongoing progress. I think Malia, and then Jeff had his hand up.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon and Carolia, for this wonderful presentation. One of the things that I think about as part of the conversations that we can all have with regards to student success and these issues are our policies. And one of the things that we hear a lot is, when a student comes to you, be flexible with deadlines, be flexible with dates, You know, if someone comes to you and you can provide an extension, provide an extension. And what I worry about is, what if a student who might approach me as a white female teacher, let's say a student who comes from privilege might feel perfectly comfortable asking me for an extension. But what if the student of color or the doesn't, and then that student is not given a benefit of an extension because for whatever reason they didn't come forward. So we have these, these things where we're building in to make an equitable culture. And I don't know what the answers are. Maybe the answers are flexible deadlines for everybody and drop the lowest grade, that type of thing. But I would just like to have more conversations with my peers about these things. And the other along these lines is the messaging that we have where, some students might rather have an F than a W. So check with the student before you drop them. But then we hear there is fraud in the rosters. So make sure you're dropping inactive students. It's as though we don't necessarily know what our policies are. So
that's an excellent point, Malia. I think just looking at my own experiences years ago as an undergrad and how I wasn't confident in approaching my academic advisor. I wasn't confident in approaching a professor with a PhD. It was an intimidating process to go into someone's office during office hours. We know it exists. So because of my own experience and how I felt intimidated by the process, I'm intrusive when it comes to my students. I'll reach out before they have to reach out to me because I know they're not going to come to me. Even though I'm a faculty of color, I still have students who are not going to cross that threshold to come to my office hours.
Right.
I'm very creative now, especially during this virtual platform, to reach out to those students who I know are not going to extend it because some of them don't have that level of confidence. They're not comfortable in seeking out. They're expected to submit to any person in authority.
Yes.
So if you're groomed and raised that way, you're not going to overstep those boundaries.
That's right. So it's such thank you for affirming that. And the other thing I want to put in, the constant point that I put in constantly is some of us teach teacher-student ratio 250 students. Friends, colleagues. I mean, we all want to be involved and give as much support as we can. We need to do something, in my opinion, about the student teacher ratios for full-time lecturers. If there's an equity issue, I think that's one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Malia. It looks like Jeff, you have your hand up next.
Yeah, I think it'd be really, really good to have some time devoted in each Senate to looking over the board policies that govern the way that we handle these situations, to reanalyze what our goals are for how we respond to these situations students find themselves in sometimes. Is it correct? Like somebody was asking, is there something else we could do besides dismiss them? We really need to take a look at what decisions have been made, what decisions we can change, so that everybody understands what kind of sets these policies. I think that'd be a great topic for very soon at both colleges. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And this is actually also something that the EDTC Cube Committee can take a look at as well. So thank you for that suggestion. Khalid, you have your hand up?
Yes, Dr. Dennis, thank you very much. First of all, I need to thank our colleagues for this informative presentation, because even it was shocking, but it was very informative at the same time. Just I have one question that I think they start a good point, and if they can during the next step to find what were the main causes for this academic and progress reasons. If they can find the reasons, we can find the solutions. So just if I can ask this question for Sharon and her colleague, Well, you start a very good steps. That was very informative for each one of us. But the next step, we need to know what are the main causes for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalid. Okay, we still have a couple of hands up still. Shirley and Dave, I want to point out that we're just about at the end of the meeting. Do you want to go ahead and we'll allow Shirley and Dave to ask their questions and then conclude the meeting? Does that work for everybody? Of course, you can, if you need to leave, feel free to leave. So we'll go ahead and do that. Although I saw Dave just put his hand down, so I'm not sure. Dave, I didn't mean to pressure you.
I'll be very quick, Denise.
Okay, that's fine. Shirley, go ahead.
I was just looking at the website that has all of the information about probation and dismissal. And I asked the question in chat on what is the process. And this page is very informative in what the descriptions are and what the definitions are, but it doesn't really say what the process is, if it is automatic. Anyways, it does say at the bottom, it says any student believing to be unjustifiably dismissed and has documentation to support it may file a petition. So I'm wondering if it would be worth even looking at to disaggregate that data as well, right? Because you're going to, just as Malia was saying, and Sharon as well, students of color will probably not want to sign to go ahead and petition to fight that, whether it be the lack of progress or dismissal. So maybe we can dive into even that data as well. I think that would be important, and also to reach out to students and say, hey, you have this option. I think that we need to inform students a little bit better as well.
Thank you, Shirley. Okay, and that brings us to, it's 12:21, so we are officially ending the